The massive conference hall buzzed with tension. Alien delegates from across the galaxy filled the room, their exotic forms a stark contrast to the small human delegation. At the center stood King Kang, a towering reptilian monarch whose scaled skin gleamed under the artificial lights. Hyun Park watched carefully, her hands clasped behind her back. She was the youngest human representative ever selected for this intergalactic summit, chosen for her exceptional composure and strategic mind. Around her, other human diplomats stood quietly, their expressions neutral but their eyes sharp. King Kang stepped forward, his massive form casting a shadow over the human delegation. His translator device crackled to life, his deep voice filling the hall with contempt. "Humans," he began, his voice dripping with ridicule, "you are perhaps the most insignificant species we have ever encountered in our 1,000-year exploration of the galaxy." The alien crowd mumbled and chuckled. Some of the more advanced species looked down at the humans with clear disdain. Hyun remained perfectly still, her heart racing but her exterior calm. "Your technology is primitive," Kang continued, pulling up holographic images of Earth's cities and military equipment. "Your weapons are laughable. Your space exploration is nothing more than a child's attempt to reach a distant playground. You have no advanced weapons, no sophisticated defense systems, no understanding of true galactic politics." "Woo!" The alien military commander standing beside Kang nodded in agreement. His forearms crossed, creating an intimidating silhouette that towered over the human representatives. Hyun subtly activated her recording device, capturing every single word of the alien king's speech. Her colleague Jae Kim, seated nearby, made careful notes on a tiny digital pad. "We have observed your planet," Kang declared, "and we find your species utterly unremarkable. You fight among yourselves, destroy your own environment, and have barely managed to send a few primitive machines beyond your planet's orbit. What possible threat could you represent to an advanced civilization like ours?" More laughter erupted from the alien delegates. Some pointed, others whispered mockingly. Hyun's colleague Yoon Lee maintained a poker face, but beneath her calm exterior a fire was building. The insults were calculated, designed to humiliate and belittle humanity in front of the entire galactic community. King Kang wasn't finished. He pulled up more images. Earth's environmental challenges, political conflicts, economic struggles. Each image was carefully selected to paint humanity as a weak, divided, and insignificant species. "Your planet is a mess," he said. "Your people are scattered, your resources are depleting, and your potential is minimal. The Galactic Council should consider your species nothing more than a curiosity, if that." As he spoke, Hyun noticed something interesting. While most delegates laughed and jeered, a few, particularly representatives from smaller oppressed civilizations, watched with different eyes. Their expressions were not of mockery, but of careful observation. The speech continued for another 20 minutes. Each word was a deliberate strike intended to crush any notion of human potential. King Kang was performing for his audience, showing off his power and dismissing humanity as a joke. What the alien king didn't know was that every single word was being recorded, not just by Hyun's device, but by multiple systems back on Earth. News agencies, military intelligence, scientific research centers, all were receiving this live transmission. When Kang finally finished, he looked expectantly at the human delegation. Clearly, he expected tears, anger, or some form of emotional breakdown. Instead, Hyun Park simply bowed, a small, controlled gesture of acknowledgement. "Thank you for your insights," she said, her voice calm and measured. The translation device converted her words, but the underlying message was clear. This was not a defeat. This was not even a moment of surrender. This was the beginning of something else entirely. As the human delegation left the conference hall, Jae Kim leaned close to Hyun. "They have no idea what's coming," he whispered. The moment the human delegation returned to Earth, everything changed. In research centers, military bases, and government facilities across the planet, a silent storm began to brew. Jae Kim entered his laboratory at the Global Advanced Technology Center. Screens flickered with complex data streams. His team of young scientists worked with a focus that bordered on obsession. They had been waiting for this moment, a chance to prove humanity's potential. "We need a complete system reboot," Jay announced. His fingers danced across holographic displays, pulling apart existing technological concepts and rebuilding them from scratch. Quantum computing models that once seemed impossible now looked like simple puzzles. In a military facility hundreds of miles away, Hyun Park stood before a massive strategy board. Military leaders, scientists, and political experts surrounded her. Gone were the days of international competition. Now humanity spoke with one voice. "We have 3 months," Hyun explained. Her finger traced potential technological pathways. 3 months to develop systems that can defend us and show our true capabilities. Funding was no longer an issue. Every nation, every corporation, every research center poured resources into a single goal. Universities suspended normal operations. Entire industries redirected their focus. The global economy transformed overnight. Young engineers worked around the clock. Programmers created adaptive AI systems that could learn and evolve faster than any known technology. Material scientists developed new alloys that could withstand extreme conditions. Physicists broke through quantum barriers that had seemed impossible just months before. Jay's breakthrough came unexpectedly. While testing a new quantum communication system, he discovered a method to create adaptive neural networks that could predict and counter technological threats in milliseconds. What would have taken years of development was now possible in weeks. Military technology transformed rapidly. Drone systems became living, thinking networks. Weapon systems could now adapt to any potential threat in real time. Defense mechanisms that seemed like science fiction became practical reality. "We're not just building weapons," Jay told his team. "We're building a message." The message was clear. Humanity would not be dismissed. In space research centers, new propulsion systems emerged. Rocket designs that once seemed impossible were now being tested. The limitations of human space exploration began to crumble. Yoon Lee worked on another critical front, diplomatic strategy. She analyzed every word of King Kang's speech, understanding that technology was only part of the response. Global communication networks were rebuilt. Alliances were formed with other marginalized species who had been ignored by the main galactic powers. "Information is our first weapon," she told her diplomatic team. "We will show them our strength through unity and strategy." Universities transformed their curricula. Every student became part of the global effort. Young minds that once competed now collaborated. The best programmers, engineers, scientists, and strategists worked as a single unit. 3 months passed. Like 3 days. When the first prototype weapons were unveiled, even the most skeptical military experts were shocked. Adaptive shields that could change molecular structure in milliseconds. Weapon systems that could predict and counter any known technological threat. Hyun looked at the first successful test results. The quantum communication network Jay had developed could now transmit information faster than light. Defense systems could analyze and counter threats before they even happened. "We're ready," she said simply. The aliens had laughed at humanity. They had called them weak, primitive, insignificant. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In research centers, military bases, and government facilities, humanity waited. Not with fear, not with anger, but with a quiet, determined certainty. The response was coming. The first alien ships appeared like dark shadows against the starry backdrop. Massive vessels that had once seemed invincible now approached Earth with a sense of misplaced confidence. Hyun Park stood on the bridge of the Human Defense flagship. Her hands rested lightly on the control panel, fingers barely moving. Around her, a team of young commanders waited, their eyes locked on the holographic displays. "Incoming fleet," a young navigator announced. 63 primary vessels, multiple support craft. The alien military commander Wu believed this would be a simple mission, a quick demonstration of galactic power. a way to crush the human resistance before it could truly begin. He was wrong. The human fleet looked different from anything the aliens had seen before. Sleek vessels with adaptive skin that could change color and molecular structure in milliseconds. Each ship was more than a weapon. It was a living, thinking system. "Activate quantum shields," Hyun commanded. The ships around her transformed. Their outer layers shifted, becoming something between metal and living energy. Quantum networks connected each vessel, creating a defense system that could predict and counter threats before they even happened. Alien weapons fired. Massive energy beams that had destroyed countless civilizations raced toward the human fleet. Nothing happened. The human ships absorbed the energy, redirected it, transformed it. Where alien weapons should have caused destruction, they now powered the human defense systems. Wu watched in disbelief. His 4 hands gripped the control panel, tentacles turning pale with shock. "Impossible," he whispered. Hyun's voice was calm. Counterstrike initiated. Human vessels moved with a fluidity that defied traditional space combat. They weren't just flying, they were thinking. Adaptive AI systems predicted each alien movement, countered each potential attack, created strategies in milliseconds. The first wave of alien ships exploded silently. No dramatic fireballs, just sudden, complete destruction. Jae Kim, monitoring from the ground control center, watched the quantum communication network light up. Each destroyed vessel became information. Each lost ship was a lesson learned, and immediately distributed across the entire human fleet. "They don't understand," he told his team. "We're not just fighting, we're learning." Alien communication channels went crazy. Panic replaced confidence. Their supposedly invincible fleet was being dismantled by a species they had laughed at just months before. Wu tried to reorganize. He called for retreat, for regrouping, for any kind of strategic response. But human technology was already 3 steps ahead. Quantum disruptors targeted the alien fleet's communication systems. Suddenly, each ship was isolated. No communication. No coordination. Each vessel was alone, vulnerable. The human fleet moved like a single organism. Each ship knew exactly what the others were doing. Each movement was part of a larger living strategy. Hyun watched the battle unfold. This wasn't just a military engagement. This was a message to the entire galaxy. Humanity would not be ignored. Humanity would not be dismissed. Within hours, the alien invasion fleet was destroyed, not through brute force, but through intelligence, adaptation, and a unity that the aliens could never understand. As the last alien ship disappeared from the sensors, Hyun allowed herself a small smile. "Message sent," she said quietly. Back on the alien homeworld, King Kang would soon receive the news. His mighty invasion fleet, reduced to space dust by the species he had called weak. King Kang stared at the holographic reports in disbelief. His entire invasion fleet, gone. Destroyed by the humans he had mocked just months earlier. Yun Li was already moving. Her diplomatic team had prepared for this moment. While military forces had won the battle, the real war would be fought through information and strategy. Global communication networks began targeting the alien infrastructure. Not with weapons, but with something far more powerful: information. Economic channels were carefully disrupted. Trade routes that the alien civilization depended on suddenly became unstable. Jae Kim's quantum communication system did something unprecedented. It didn't just block alien communications, it transformed them. Encrypted messages became windows of opportunity. What was meant to be a defensive barrier became an offensive weapon. On Earth, every system was now connected. Universities, research centers, military installations. They worked as a single, living network. Each breakthrough was instantly shared. Each discovery became a weapon. The alien economic system began to crack. Colonies that had been tightly controlled suddenly found themselves with access to information they'd never had before. Smaller species, long oppressed by the alien empire, saw their chance. King Kang's advisors panicked. Their supposedly invincible empire was falling apart from the inside. Human technology wasn't just destroying ships, it was dismantling an entire civilization's infrastructure. Hyun Park watched the strategy unfold. This wasn't about destruction. This was about transformation. Alien communication networks started to collapse. Their military communication systems became useless. Ships that once moved with precision now drifted without direction. Supply lines disappeared. Economic networks crumbled. The alien military commander Wu tried to respond, but every strategy he developed was already anticipated. Human adaptive systems were 3 steps ahead of every possible move. "They're not fighting," Jay explained to his team. "They're solving a complex problem, and we are the solution." Entire alien colonies began to revolt. The information networks opened up possibilities they'd never imagined. Oppressed species saw a chance for freedom. Economic systems that had kept them controlled for centuries suddenly became transparent. King Kang's power base began to collapse. Not through military force, but through the most powerful weapon humanity had: information and unity. Yun Li's diplomatic team worked carefully. They didn't want total destruction. They wanted change. Each communication was designed to show a different path. A path of cooperation, of mutual understanding. The quantum communication systems did something remarkable. They didn't just block or destroy, they transformed. Alien communication channels became windows of possibility. Smaller alien species began to see humans differently, not as a weak civilization, but as a potential ally, a force that could break the existing power structures. Military bases that once seemed invincible now looked vulnerable. Economic networks that had controlled entire civilizations for centuries began to crack. King Kang watched his empire fall apart, not through violence but through something he could never understand: human adaptability. Hyun's strategy was working perfectly. They weren't destroying the alien civilization. They were giving it a chance to rebuild, to change. "We're not conquerors," she told her team. "We're problem solvers." The turning point wasn't a battle. It was a transformation. Alien species that had been oppressed for centuries suddenly found a voice. Communication networks opened. Economic systems became transparent. Military structures began to crumble. King Kang realized something terrifying. The humans weren't just fighting a war. They were redesigning an entire galactic system. And they were just getting started. The final confrontation happened on a neutral space station. King Kang arrived, broken and defeated, his once mighty empire reduced to fragments. Hyun Park stood before him, not as a conqueror, but as a strategist. Behind her, Jae Kim and Yoon Lee waited silently. Their presence alone spoke volumes. "You called us weak," Hyun began. Her voice was calm. No anger, no revenge, just a simple statement of fact. King Kang's scaled body looked smaller now. The arrogance that had defined him was gone, replaced by something he had never experienced before: understanding. Yoon Lee presented the terms. It wasn't a surrender. It was a reconstruction plan. The alien empire would be transformed. Smaller species would get representation. Economic systems would become transparent. No more oppression. "We're not destroying you," Jay explained. "We're helping you evolve." The quantum communication networks had already done most of the work. Alien colonies were restructuring. Economic systems were being rebuilt. Military structures were dissolving. What humans had done was remarkable. They hadn't conquered. They had solved a complex systemic problem. King Kang realized something profound. Humanity wasn't just a species. They were a solution. The space station became a symbol. Representatives from dozens of previously oppressed alien species watched. This wasn't a defeat. This was a rebirth. Hyun's terms were simple: open communication, economic transparency, democratic representation for all species. No more hierarchical systems that had controlled the galaxy for thousands of years. Jay's technology ensured these changes would happen. Adaptive systems that could predict and prevent potential conflicts. Communication networks that would keep everything transparent. Your empire dies today, Hyun said, but something better will replace it. King Kang understood now. Humanity wasn't just strong. They were intelligent. They could see solutions where others saw only problems. The alien monarch knelt, not in defeat, but in recognition. Around them, the galaxy watched. Smaller species saw hope. Oppressed colonies saw possibility. The entire galactic structure was about to change. Yoon Lee's diplomatic strategy was working perfectly. They weren't just changing one empire, they were redesigning how intelligent species could interact. We're not conquerors, Hyun repeated. We're problem solvers. The space station became a turning point, not just for the alien empire, but for the entire galaxy. Humanity had arrived, not with weapons, not with destruction, but with understanding. The reckoning was complete, and a new chapter was about to begin. King Kang looked up at Hyun. No longer an enemy, now a potential partner.